Our next topic is ethics of communication. Humans rarely express personal desires and what needs to be done and how is to be done. In a business, that is the most important for both managers and employees to effectively express what they want to do and how they want it to be done. Communication is always a two-way mutual set of action that includes the communicator and the receiver. So, something about history of communication. Throughout history, unethical communication has been one of humanity's most potential harmful weapons. In interpersonal context, communication has the power to wound deeply, to undermine connection, and to thwart healthy human development. With institutional context, unethical communication has been used to support greed and corruption, to bolster tyranny, to otherwise to economic injustice, violence, war, genocide, and tribal conflict. At the same time, the art of communication has been an instrument to pursuits of truth, wisdom, justice, and peace. Historically responsible and effectively communication has fostered loving connection, compassion, and understanding. Communications powers to hurt and to heal, to repress and to inspire, to betray and to uplift, to oppress and to comfort, to deceive and a lot of other things. So, uh, I will tell you more about fundamentals of ethical communication. Perhaps the main principle of ethical communication is honesty, as other factors stem from this core value of presenting information in the most reliable and factual way possible. Ethical communication also assumes that communicated information is always presented and received by the listener according to one's subjective perception, even if only the most minimal way. And thus, the goal of ethical communication is to be as objective as possible when communicating with others and to ensure that every recipient receives the same message. There are some few fundamental principles we need to remember. And first one is openness and transparency. So, being honest and transparent, as well open, is the most core principle of ethical communication. This means that speaking 99% of the truth in a manner while leaving out 1% of facts is not ethical communication, as omitting any detail intentionally. And as omitting any detail intentionally actually changes the way that listener will perceive the event. Thus, being 100% open and transparent and hiding nothing is key order for all ethical relationships. Whether it be in a business between its member or with business with other partners, or even customers to succeed in the short term and long term. Being honest is linked to one personal and professional integrity. In a perfect world, all members of an organization would have a positive reputation of honesty, such that listeners never doubt that they are saying 100% true. For instance, utilizing ethical communication to be honest about the time, about budget constraints, about meeting, about stakeholder relationships can be the difference between the project meetings and its goal and falling due misunderstandings or miscommunication. Here are some examples. First one is the language use. Obviously, ethical communication dictates that speakers utilize language that listener understands. It would make little sense to present a business presentation in English to a non-English speaking group, for example, to a Chinese audience. Taking its example further, it would also be unethical to communicate information mostly in Chinese with a certain section in English, presenting only parts of the data to the Chinese audience. Jargons. Every industry has its own jargon. While speaking to a lay person, it's ethical to speak with simple, easy to understand words. while avoiding to use of heavy jargons, resulting in portions of a presentation communication being incomprehensibly to a portion of the audience. Language fluency. Ethical communication takes into account the level of fluency as well the language spoken by listener, so that recipients of a communication, whatever it be spoken or written, are able to fully understand what's being communicated. Next is accessibility and technology. In this information and digital age, some take accessibility to advanced technology for granted. For instance, while smartphones are readily available and translation apps are abundant, not everyone is able to access such applications or platforms. If a business wanted to present certain pieces of information to an audience while expecting the audience to translate it on their native language via the application, there may be confusion. Thus, the ability to access certain technology and know how to use certain application may be a roadblock when it comes to ethical communication. Development of relationships. The art of communication allows people to express themselves in order to develop relationships. In business, this can be an employee dealing with a manager, executive communicating with a stakeholder, or managers talking with business representatives. This is critical for there to be no confusions or misunderstandings when business try to develop relationships with themselves and with other business entities, client customs. To accomplish this, ethical communication principles must be followed, ensuring that all parties can receive the truth and understand what needs to be done and needs to be done further. Okay, so some principles of ethical communication. There are different kind of principles of ethical communication. The first one that we're gonna talk is to be truthful and honest. Being honest means communicating what is known to be true. Only 100% facts to a listener, with no intent to deceive or present only parts of the truth. It also means being as objective as possible. That is not tailoring the story based on what the speakers wants the listeners to believe. Letting the listener take the data that is objectively presented and believe what they should choose to believe is a core goal of ethical communication. Ethical communication should be based on accurate information and facts in a word and not a lie. Active listener. Hearing someone and listening to them are two different things. In order for ethical communication to be effectively, is necessary um, for the recipient to a proactive listener to the speaker and to not just hear what they want to hear or hear only parts of a conversation. This also means asking questions when any point is not completely understood for the sake of clarification. Speak non-judgmentally. Ethical and concisely communicating means speaking in a non-judgmental manner with every recipient, negating unnecessary conflict, which typically creates a breakdown in communication and causes misunderstandings. Unnecessary conflict is never good for any business, and such conflict usually result from unethical communication with judgmental, accusatory, and overly critical comments, often being the catalyst for such breakdowns in communication. Speak from your own experience. Being your personal experience into a dialogue with a listener is important. Providing backup for your arguments with something more tangible. Such a communication method, experiential communication, paints a complete picture for your audience and helps to provide your points so that the listener have a better understanding of what's being said. Consider the receiver Preferred communication channel. You risk losing an audience if you use a communication channel that is not preferred by you. To effectively communicate with your listener, use your most preferred communication channels, whatever that is, face to face, email, conference call, phone call, messenger, and so on. Also, when presenting data to a business audience, be aware of a preferred method of presentation for that business. Whatever this can be graphics, slides, PowerPoint presentation, etc. Additionally, since body language is very important, is often preferred to meet business clients face to face. Strive to understand. Of course, while it is important to be proactive in listening, it is important for listener also to strive to full understanding what is being said before responding, while asking for clarification of confirmation of a point is fine. Many times questions that listener pose have already been answered. Listeners should think about what has been said before constructing a reply. Reading in between the lines, it is also important skill that allows for understanding what isn't said but was implicitly said or implied. Avoid a negative tone. Ethically communication assume the speaker will avoid rudeness, be polite and professional, and have facts. The ethical communicator knows that it's not only important what to say, but how you say it. Tone is one of the most critical facts of communication. A listener may miss the meaning, although if your tone is wrong, which can lead to the unnecessary confrontation in a business. Controlling one's tone goes along with self-control, a soft skill that allows one to know how they wish to reply to a tense business messages. For instance, versus the most effectively manner for replying. Essentially, keeping the tone voice positive and neutral is the best way. As the tone of a written message, of course, a written message doesn't have a voice. Yes, so tone is important. Additionally, why is acceptable to be honest and open? Tact and professional maturity means knowing when it is inappropriate to speak up and when it is crucial to. Tact also means knowing that being completely honest does not e- equate with being rude or negative. It is possible to be completely honest and open with one's thoughts and feelings while still remaining polite and respectful. Do not interrupt others. This is important. Allowing others to speak is important to create a civil, effective working environment. Interrupting others results in misunderstanding and unnecessary conflicts in a a breakdown in workplace communicators, which only hinders corporate progress and creates problems. Interrupting others not only shows a lack of respect, but does not always allow the listener to fully grasp with what is being said, which often result in incorrect assumption being made. Okay, next one is respect privacy and confidentiality. Most businesses should include a clause in their code of ethics defining what is appropriate when it comes to honoring client and employee confidentiality and privacy. This can have a wide range of implications, including minimizing workplace gossip and mitigating toxic conversation um, about the private lives of clients and or personal. Next one is accept responsibility. Is taking responsibility for the action that result from one's words, whatever it to be good or bad.